Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta and you're watching Basis Points, where we dive deep into the numbers and the stories that drive our economy and shape our world. The Philippine Stock Exchange Index is gearing up for 6 new IPOs over the next year. After Friday's gains, how is the PSE Index shaping up? We'll talk about this and more with the head of BDO Securities Online, Alejandro Molina. A big shift in power. A Japanese joint venture hands over control of the Sual power station to the Philippines. And the Philippine government eyes expanding incentive packages for electric vehicles. First, a recap of how financial markets fared last week. Now on Wall Street, the tech-heavy Nasdaq ended higher last Friday, driven by mega-cap shares. These include Tesla, whose stock rose on the electric vehicle maker's robust sales forecast. Meanwhile, the Dow Jones fell 0.6%, while the S&P 500 was unchanged.
Investors are digesting earnings reports that are coming in. We're still at very high levels for S&P 500. It's been a great year for investors, and we still have a glass half full view for the remainder of 2024 and 2025 looking forward.
Over in Europe, stocks closed mixed as investors continue to digest third quarter earnings reports. Travel shares were down 1.5%, leading losses last Friday. Here in Asia, in the Asia Pacific, Japan's Nikkei 225 climbs after the country's Liberal Democratic Party lost its majority in the lower house following Sunday's snap elections. Now the Kospi also opens higher, rising 0.7%, while the S&P ASX 200 over in Australia is unchanged. In the commodities market, oil prices fall as Israel shows restraint in strikes on Iran. Gold, meanwhile, is up 0.4% to $2,735 per ounce. Up ahead, it's another action-packed week for global financial markets. Here's what's on the table. Starting off with Japan's snap election on Sunday. Equities in the country were previously weighed down by uncertainty, but a new coalition partner could push Premier Shigeru Ishiba to drop some market-unfriendly policies like higher corporate and capital gains taxes. In the United States, it's a full-on week of earnings with 5 of the so-called Magnificent 7 Titans reporting quarterly results. Google's parent firm Alphabet will be the first on October 29th, followed by Microsoft and then Facebook's parent firm Meta Platforms on the 30th, and then Apple and Amazon on the 31st. These companies have an outsized influence on markets due to their massive market values. Here in the Philippines, we'll get the September Producer Price Index on Wednesday. In August, that figure fell 1% year-on-year, marking the 8th month of producer deflation and the sharpest decline since March. On a monthly basis, producer prices tumbled 0.2% in August. Over in the United Kingdom, also on Wednesday, Britain's new Labour government will unveil its first budget. Finance Minister Rachel Reeves is expected to balance high debt, public spending pledges, and a promise not to hike income tax, raising concerns about extra borrowing and tax grabs on capital gains, dividends, and inherited wealth. And on Friday, the U.S. will release its latest employment data. Economists expect America's economy to have created 140,000 new jobs in October from 254,000 last September. Now, the Philippine Stock Exchange is expecting 6 initial public offerings over the next 12 months. Without giving specifics, PSE President and CEO Ramon Monzon says that these companies are taking part in the exchange's Listing Engagement and Assistance Program, a free initiative designed to help companies prepare for capital raising through IPOs. Monzon adds that while these firms are ready to go public, the final decision will depend, of course, on market conditions and on each company's management. As of the end of September, the Philippines has 284 listed companies, lagging behind Vietnam's 394. Businessman Manny Pangilinan shortlists potential successors to lead Metro Pacific Investments as he approaches retirement. While Pangilinan disclosed this during an interview with Nikkei Asia, he did not reveal the names of the actual candidates. He emphasizes the importance of tough love on their training to ensure they're well prepared for future challenges. At 78 years old, Pangilinan is the chairman, president, and CEO of Metro Pacific, while also leading other major companies such as PLDT, Meralco, First Pacific, and Indo Food. The operation of the 1,200 megawatt Sual coal-fired thermal power plant in Pangasinan is now officially in the hands of the Philippines, a move that could strengthen the country's energy security. Team Energy, a joint venture between Japan's Tokyo Electric Power Company and Marubeni Corporation, has transferred the facility to Sual Power Inc., or SPI. This follows the end of a nearly 30-year build, operate, transfer, or BOT agreement. SPI, a subsidiary of San Miguel Global Power, now takes full control of the plant's operations. The Sual power station, which supplies electricity to the Luzon grid, is one of the largest coal-fired plants in the country. This transfer marks a key step toward local control of vital energy assets, ensuring stability and reliability for the nation's power supply. On another front, electric vehicle sales in the Philippines are expected to increase next year as the government steps up its initiatives to promote the use of eco-friendly vehicles. Our correspondent, G. Baroga, has this report.
Transportation Chief Jaime Bautista says the Marcos administration is considering expanding incentive packages for electric vehicles, or EVs, for both manufacturers and users.
The President would like also to study the possibility of extending incentives not only for the whole importation but yung mga spare parts. No? Kasi you can assemble or manufacture electric vehicles here in the Philippines, no? But some parts will be imported, which will be subject to tariff and taxes.
EVs are a top priority for Bautista, who highlighted the increasing number of public utility vehicle drivers and operators making the shift to electric, particularly in rural areas. The DOTR chief was impressed by the EVs on display during the opening of the Philippine International Motor Show.
This is now the direction, no? So that we can contribute to the reduction of emission. No?
Meanwhile, the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines, or CAMP, is optimistic about the EV sector's future, with sales expected to rise by at least 10% in 2025.
We have seen the growth in the EV sector. You know, we just last year we already sold about 10,000 units, and we expect to sell more this year. It used to be like few hundreds years ago.
Campi says more Filipinos are embracing EV technology as the next step in automotive innovation. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back to Basis Points. Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look at the initial figures. Right now, the PSE index is in the green, higher by 0.1% after gaining 0.4% last Friday. The PSE index is now at 73.24. The broader all shares index up as well, flat with an upward bias, up by 0.1% to 40.20. Taking a look at the sub indices, we're seeing a mixed picture here. The financials, holding firms, mining and oil counters, and property counters are in the green, whereas we're seeing some gains in losses rather in the industrial and services counters. Industrial sector down by 0.1%, whilst the services sector is down by 0.7%. Now, at the foreign exchange market, the peso opens weaker at 58.40 from its previous close of 58.32 against the greenback. Now, to help us make sense of these numbers, we have with us the head of BDO Securities Online, Alejandro Molina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alejandro. It's good to have you with us.
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, lots of changes. It's a dynamic investment environment, so your thoughts are really welcome. Now, because we have you here, we're going to talk about the rise of online trading in the Philippines, and we'll also talk about your outlook for equities and for the peso. I'll let you choose your own adventure. Which topic would you like to tackle first? Okay, online, your core. All right, in the recent years, how has the online trading environment evolved in the Philippines? We got a really big push during the pandemic, but since then, how has it been?
I think it's grown, as you mentioned, during the pandemic. Growth has been slowing down a bit. And I think it's a function of just the asset preferences of the investors. There's a lot of people shifting into the more active ones like the cryptos. And for the Philippine stock market, there's just a little bit more of leeway to introduce and educate the users and grow that population.
How big is this market? Of course, they're looking also for diversity, which is why the push into crypto is also interesting. But yeah, how big is this market, the online trading market in the country?
The online trading market, you're looking at a little less than 2 million users. They trade probably maybe a third of the stock market at best. The market is really dominated by foreign institutions and local institutions. And we're also looking at just more products to be in terms of the choices for investors. I think a lot of the online investors are looking for big gains, and unfortunately for the stock markets, we haven't really been seeing that big of a gain.
Yeah, more price action for them
Yes.
to come in. How many users on BDO's online trading platform?
BDO has over 500,000 users, so we're maybe a quarter or a little bit more of the market in terms of online users.
Okay, talking about the market as a whole, would you say that the Philippine online trading market is underpenetrated, given these figures?
It's underpenetrated. I think out of the total market that we're looking at, we're just like 2% of what could be there. There's definitely a lot of growth for all competitors aside. And it's something that I think in the next 5 years would be a bigger percentage of the stock market.
In terms of the demographics of your users, that's generally about over 35 years old?
Yes.
Has that always been that way?
It's always been that way, and we're looking at that shift to continue higher. We're looking at people who have the means to invest. So those early on who are in their young 20s, not really having an active job, it doesn't help them invest. But those who are 35 but more stable, there's you see bulk of the trading activity.
Okay, all right. So that's the focus now, 35 and above. All right, now taking a look at your outlook for the PSEI and the peso. Recent changes in the economic landscape. Just last Friday, the Banco Central's RRR cut, the cut in the reserve requirement ratio of banks was implemented. That's going to inject about $7 billion into the financial system. That on top of the consecutive rate cuts by the BSP. What are your thoughts on the economic momentum here in the Philippines given those shifts?
Those moves by the BSP definitely help the equities market. We are also expecting further cuts by the BSP and by the Fed in the coming months and to next year. These moves typically benefit the stock market, but for it to continue, speaking about the stock market, you'd need corporate earnings to sustain that growth or help that growth.
Yeah. All of the changes in the macroeconomic environment, that's all going to help that. The BSP began its rate cutting cycle in August. They eased again this month in October, 25 and 25, so a total of 50. You said you expect more rate cuts in the coming months. Over the course of the next 12 months, how many more rate cuts can we anticipate?
We're looking at maybe 125 more cuts in the next 12 months. For the Fed, maybe another 100 basis points cut. With that said, since we are potentially cutting more than the Fed, our currency could also take a hit, but that could also be good for exports.
Right. On a base case and on a bull case, where do you see all these gains taking the PSC index?
On a base case, we're looking at 7,300 for the end of the year. On a bull case, we're looking at 7,900 for the end of the year.
Okay, that's a nice upside.
Yeah.
Given that upside potential, what are the stocks investors should be buying now to capitalize on that upside?
I would focus more on certain sectors, but to give a few names, Ayala Land and SM Prime on the property sector would be a good pick. We want to see the cyclical place. So even consumer names with inflation coming off, consumer companies could have better earnings. Banks so far the past 2 years have been doing well, but at one point the investors looking for growth would have to rotate out of the banks.
Okay, so property and consumer stocks are going to be good. What specific stocks, like for property?
For property, looking at SM Prime. For another one is Ayala Land. Another pseudo property play would be the REITs. We're looking at RCR as one of them. RCR and the attractiveness of REITs is because of the dividend play. So as of last Friday, if you invest in RCR, our expectation is you could have a yield of around 6.8%.
Okay. Now, this is on expectations that inflation will be where for 2024 and 2025?
For 2024, we're looking at 3.3% to end the year. And for next year, we're looking at to moderate to 2.7%.
Okay, now moving on to the peso, it warrants monitoring because our gains have unwound since June. Now, as the dollar strengthens, it's the narrative across the world. Right now, the peso is at a near 3-month low, down almost 4% against the greenback. To 58.32 last Friday. BSP Governor Eli Remolona says that if the geopolitical risks and the risks with the U.S. elections persist, weakening to the 59 level is possible. Not so possible, but still a likelihood. What do you think about this?
Definitely possible. I think there will be some support by OFW remittances to help cater that and not breach the 59 level. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be at the 59 level. The economy has to adjust. BDO internally, on a bear case scenario, we're looking at high 56. Me personally, if we do see 57 by the year end, I think that would consider a win for the peso.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Thank you for your time, Alejandro.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Now, that was Alejandro Molina, the head of BDO Securities Online. We're taking a quick breather. Basis Points will be right back. Welcome back to Basis Points. With the holiday season fast approaching and the expected travel rush, the Transportation Department is calling on vehicle manufacturers to play a role in easing Metro Manila's traffic problems. The details from G. Baroga.
Transportation Chief Jaime Bautista is calling on the Chamber of Automotive Manufacturers of the Philippines to collaborate on solutions to Metro Manila's worsening traffic crisis. Bautista emphasizes the urgency of addressing this issue, citing a JICA study which pegs the economic cost of traffic at a staggering 3.5 billion pesos per day in Metro Manila alone.
We do not claim exclusive solutions to the traffic problem, which is why we seek CAMPI to help us and the transport stakeholders. I hope CAMPI can provide a fresh look at addressing traffic through the eyes of vehicle manufacturers.
Secretary Bautista believes the local automotive sector is uniquely positioned to understand and respond to the traffic challenges facing the country's economic hub.
We need a perspective that transcends regulating drivers and the use of land vehicles.
With the Christmas season approaching, the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority has also announced plans to mitigate the expected holiday traffic congestion. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
Megawide, led by businessman Ed Saavedra, is preparing for a new offering of preferred shares. The engineering and construction company announced that its board of directors has approved the issuance of up to 60 million Series 6 preferred shares, along with an increase in its authorized capital to 5.18 billion pesos. The board also approved an additional 64 million preferred shares, bringing the total to 250 million. Another Saavedra-owned company, Citicorp Holdings, will subscribe to 25% of the capital increase. That's 16 million preferred shares. Overseas, artificial intelligence giant NVIDIA briefly surpassed Apple as the world's most valuable company following a record-setting rally in its stock, a move that signals the growing influence of AI in the global marketplace. NVIDIA's market value climbed to $3.53 trillion on Friday, just above Apple's $3.52 trillion. The Silicon Valley chipmaker saw a huge boost due to the soaring demand for its cutting-edge AI chips, which have become critical to a range of industries. Back in June, NVIDIA briefly held the top spot before being overtaken by Microsoft and Apple. Microsoft's market value now stands at $3.18 trillion. This shift highlights how the global business landscape is increasingly driven by advancements in artificial intelligence, making AI leadership a key indicator for investors worldwide. And that's it for Basis Points. I'm Maiki Oreta. We'll be back tomorrow for more news on the financial markets and more. Keep it here on BNC, the Billionario News Channel, always on top.